Namaste. So today we read a short but powerful prayer of the Mother, May 21st, 1914. This prayer is translated by Sri Aurobindo, and one can see the difference in prayers that have been translated by Sri Aurobindo, select prayers. At least those who have a good grasp of French, they definitely are of the view that when you read the Mother's prayers original in French, it is different than when you read it in English. It's understandable because the turn of language, its beauty, its subtlety, its sophistication, many expressions. Like in Hindi, we use the word dharma very differently from the way it is understood in English. So there are words like religion, there is no equivalent. And to a audience which doesn't understand, for example, one place it is said, this world is created for delight. So people often think that, it means that we should just have joy, pleasure. So these are shades of meaning which people don't get into. So there are several shades which are born out of the experience that humanity has undergone in a given context. Say, when you use the word freedom to a Frenchman, I'm sure it is very different from the word freedom when you speak to an American. They carry a very different meaning altogether. The word is the same. So, anyways, this is translated by Sri Aurobindo, so it's a very special prayer. So, this prayer, again, like the previous prayer of May 20th, it reveals or describes a state of consciousness, and it's not just a state of consciousness, but one of the most profound realizations that any yogi can have, or rarest of rare who may have had. So, in yoga, there are three fundamental realizations. One is realizing the divine within. The second is realizing the divine in the cosmos, cosmic being. And the third is realizing the divine as the transcendent, beyond all manifestation. These are the three basic levels at which we can realize the divine. One can realize them as either or. Like, for instance, Buddha cancelled, apparently, individual realization as well as the cosmic, and he arrived at the transcendent. Though, that's how the Buddhists understand that, but there's a whole line which doesn't accept that. But that's how, if you read the permanent, which is beyond everything. But equally, one can realize the divine within without realizing the transcendent. There have been mystics, Christian mystics, medieval mystics, bhakti yogis who have realized the divine present in the heart. But they didn't realize the divine in the cosmos or the transcendent. They didn't concern also. They were so delightful, felt so delighted inside by contact with the immanent divine. Now here we see a combination of this double realization of the individual and the transcendent. The cosmic realization we have read earlier, and it would come time and again, but here we see a hint of it. So this triple experience, this triple realization is actually the aim of yoga for the complete fulfillment of our human self. One of them can liberate us. Realizing the transcendent can liberate us from the entire, we need not come back, as they say, we can dissolve, melt into the divine, vanish, disappear, completely annul our individuality. Realizing the divine within makes our individual life flush with the glow of perfection born of the psychic state. We see that in Savitri. Realizing the divine as the cosmic being, as was given to Arjuna as a special grace, where he sees the divine in his Vishwarup, helps us to join the collective march of mankind as one of its forerunners, leaders, vibhutis, to assist in that forward march. But here in this yoga, it's a triple realization. So let's read this wonderful prayer. Outside all manifestation, in the immutable silence of eternity, I am in Thee, O Lord, an unmoving beatitude. So all manifestation, temporal manifestation and the eternal manifestation. So she has gone not only beyond the lower triple worlds, but all the worlds. So we see that in Savitri, where first when the burden of night is taken away, the lower triple world, then there is the eternal day. And Savitri says that I climb not to the eternal day, even as I have shunned the eternal night. Because she is given a place in one of these eternal manifestations. For instance, there are aspirants who seek to live forever in Golok, Krishna Lok, or these high worlds where you can live forever. But transcendent is still beyond. That's why at the end, the great Godhead takes away even that. He says, I take away the burden of my day, eternal day, even as I have taken away the burden of the night. Then she goes into the sheer transcendent. So this is the transcendent in which she have gone. But what is remarkable is that she has still the individual. This is not the ego individual, obviously. You can't climb there. But the psychic individuality. This is where Sri Aurobindo brings in this unique aspect that to have the realization of the transcendent does not mean you have to lose the psychic individuality. It is no more separate because they coexist. In the supermind, they have always coexisted. So this idea of annulling the individual in the supreme may be true of the ego individuality. That is obviously true, but not of the psychic individuality. The soul need not dissolve itself in the divine, but it exists in that eternal beatitude. That's why it is beatitude. So if you dissolve, it's only silence and peace. But she has used the word beatitude. Sri Aurobindo uses this word with reference to love, with reference to ananda. And he says the 7 beatitudes, while in the human body, the different kinds of relations you can have with God. So here it is outside all manifestation, in the immutable silence of eternity, I am in thee, O Lord, an unmoving beatitude. So she has realized that state of beatitude. One more step, if she dissolves, there is no beatitude. All is annulled. But then something very marvelous. See, when we read these experiences as the greatest adventure, rather than just as a, something which I don't understand. Instead of that, just look at the adventure. What are the possibilities beyond the limits of human consciousness in that which, out of thy puissance and marvellous light, forms the center and reality of the atoms of matter, I find thee. This is what Sri Aurobindo says, Par-Brahman. He is everywhere in everything, even in the core of atoms, it exists. So this transcendent, absolute, though is beyond everything, yet is in everything. It is not something which is cut off from the world. They cannot be. But it is absolute in the sense, nothing that is relative can really, it has nothing to do with any relative world. There are 2 absolutes, in fact, Sri Aurobindo speaks of. One is the absolute in the sense it has nothing to do with the world of relativity, yet the entire world is because of him. Or it, or that, or her. In that poem, Par-Brahman, he says that he stung himself with bliss and called it pain. In the rack is curled. So he is within everything. And yet it is beyond everything. There is nothing with which you can either define it, describe it. And there is another absolute that is in terms of the relative. So Shiva is an absolute of, the divine force, ultimate force, is absolute. All forces will be subordinated to that. Krishna is the absolute of Ananda. So all the joys one can ever experience, he is the absolute. In reference to all the various joys that anyone or anything can ever experience or contain or hold, all joy flows from it. So there are 2 absolutes. So here it is obviously the absolute, which is present in everything. She is experiencing it. How beautifully. In that which, out of thy puissance and marvellous light, it's light with power in it, forms the center and reality of the atoms of matter, I find thee. She is discovering herself in the heart of every atom. There is another prayer where she describes that. I am in the heart of every atom, and I kindle therein the fire that never dies. So she is discovering herself there, which is the secret reality of the atoms of matter. I find thee. Thus, without going out of thy presence, I can disappear in thy supreme consciousness or see thee in the radiant particles of my being. Ordinarily, to disappear in the supreme, you have to go out. So, this is something very beautiful and unique in many ways. Traditional yogis will wonder how it is possible. But the mother speaks of it, Sri Aurobindo speaks about it. Thus, without going out of thy presence, I can disappear in thy supreme consciousness or see thee in the radiant particles of my being. So now you see the hint of the triple realization. She is in that presence. If she wants, she can disappear. At the same time, she can enter into every particle of creation. What a marvelous wonder it is. In the radiant particles of my being. And for the moment, that is the plenitude of thy life and thy illumination. So there is the fullness that we all seek, without which life remains incomplete. I see thee. See thee is something which is outside. I am thyself. And between these two poles, my intense love aspires towards thee. Love is the bridge thrown between the manifestation and that which is manifesting. So she has become simultaneously the Supreme who is manifesting. Simultaneously, she is at the same time in the core of every atom, and at the same time, she becomes the bridge of love between these two poles. No wonder when people asked, what do you expect from humanity? She said nothing. And all that Sri Aurobindo said is to open to her. Because she is the bridge, she is the creation, and she is the creator. And the bridge that she has built is the bridge of love. Not just the bridge of knowledge is also there. But the problem with bridge of knowledge is, most of the time when we enter through the bridge of knowledge, there's been a tendency to vanish, though you can discover the same knowledge in everything. This is the bridge of power which one can find through works. This is the bridge of knowledge which one can find through the yoga of knowledge. But this is the bridge of love, the beautiful, the full of beatitude. And puissance and light are ingrained within it. It's love that is one with wisdom, love that is one with power. So we'll just read it and then enter into the New Year mode with this beautiful prayer. May 21st, 1914. Outside all manifestation in the immutable silence of eternity, I am in thee, O Lord, an unmoving beatitude. In that which, out of thy puissance and marvellous light, forms the center and reality of the atoms of matter, I find thee. Thus, without going out of thy presence, I can disappear in thy supreme consciousness or see thee in the radiant particles of my being. And for the moment, that is the plenitude of thy life and thy illumination. I see thee, I am thyself. I see thee, I am thyself. And between these two poles, my intense love aspires towards thee. Namaste.